Okay. Hi everyone. I'm about to turn on the stream. 1 second. Hopefully all is working well. I'm back again. I'm now home from work. Yeah, I'm glad to have done the test stream beforehand. I'm gonna try and keep it within the 10-minute window. Just simply because I need to check that everything is functioning well, so I apologize if anything is off. Hi Ida, nice to see you. Thanks for joining, for taking a glance. Let me also brighten the light. usually don't like it being so bright, but there we go. Hopefully that's better. Because I'm noticing on my stream that it's kind of dim. Also, let me check the audio too for a second. Because alright, so I noticed that my audio right now is not matching my mouth. Don't worry, it will match in a second. Because once Canva activates, which now I did, it should be able to match my voice with the audio now, because I preset it that my voice will match it. Okay, it's cool. So sorry for being quiet. I do have the YouTube and Instagram stream open on my tablet in front of me right now, and I'm just listening to myself just to see if the audio is matching, and it looks like it works. What it looks like, what I'll do in the future is that as soon as I jump in the live stream, I'm just gonna do like maybe a minute, an extra minute or two to just check for final setup and everything, just because things happen. And it shouldn't take more than 10 minutes-ish, but everything else should already be established before the stream. So we will be doing grammar today. This is session 16, and we are currently on chapter 8 of intermediate level grammar. If you guys have missed the previous ones, you can find them on my YouTube channel. I have them all listed. Just make sure to find the tab that says English for Everyone, and this is chapter 1 and whatever other chapters that follows after that. So I do have them posted. We are on chapter 8, so we are covering routine and free time. So I think this is actually a good one, since we are under the conversation of just routine and free time. And of course, with my New Year's resolution, because establishing a routine is very, very important. So with that being said, I also wanted to share some, let me see. Let's share some news. I think I'll just jump straight to the greeting, just so we have that little segment, because after I finish my stream, typically what I do is I go back to this video, and then I start marking up the time to indicate, okay, which window is where I'm discussing stuff. So we're just gonna go straight into it. So our stream itinerary today includes greetings, language acquisition tracker. This might be new for you guys if you haven't seen this before. I will go over that very briefly. I did discuss this in a very, very early video, I think way back chapter 1, and I went into detail about what the language acquisition tracker is. So I'm just gonna touch base on what it is. Hopefully that will only take less than 5 minutes, and then we can focus on the more important bits, which is the chapter itself. Oh, it looks like I forgot to put number 8. I think I did like CTRL Control Z, so basically it just undoes what my edit. I remember I put 8, so I apologize. I put 8 earlier. Chapter 7 was the previous stream before I went on a break during the winter. Okay. So, and then finally, we have questions, comments, concerns, and suggestions. I'm gonna move along. Sorry, I keep stuttering over my words. I'm gonna move ahead anyways because we are limited on time. I found out that Instagram has a limitation of probably 70 minutes, 80 minutes max, and then it disconnects me from the stream. So I really cannot stay any longer than just 1 hour, and then just doing final questions within the last 10 minutes, and then the stream ends. So that's something I've learned, and the same thing happens to YouTube. So the moment Instagram disconnects, YouTube follows like within the next 5 minutes or so. So it's been an interesting trend, but these are things I'm learning, and I hope you guys are able to come on time, because again, I only have a window of where I am live and I can engage with you guys. And if you're not online, then that's okay, because you also have this video that's recorded on YouTube and Instagram. So I plan to release the Instagram videos later. We shall see how that goes. Anyways, greetings, welcome back. if this is your first time seeing me, hello, I'm Miss Hana, or Teacher Hana, or Professor Hana, whatever you want to call me. I don't care. It's just, I prefer to be called by my first name, so we can keep things casual and comfortable. Because the way I envision the Homebody Cafe is to be a very comfy place to learn English and just enjoy it together. Yeah, so I streamed earlier this morning, and that was when I did conversations. And I think I'm gonna keep continuing how this is gonna go throughout the week and see how it works. But it looks like if I'm going to be streaming Monday through Friday, it's just gonna be conversation focus in the morning. So that is 5 a.m. PDT in my time zone. So if you want to compare that to your time zone, you'll see what time I will be streaming. It's going to be in the evening for most of you guys. If you're from the Southeastern Asian countries, I think the range is typically 8 p.m. to 11 p.m. I think that's when I start to stream. But other than that, yes, I think that's about it. So I just have to do some editing after today's stream, and then this video will be ready. So you guys will be able to see the timestamps, and hopefully I will upload all the reels of the live stream today. I'm gonna try and download the videos so that I can make them into highlight reels for my YouTube channel. So yeah, just like little highlight snippets here and there. All right, so without further ado, I'm just gonna go ahead and move on. We are gonna get started with our stream itinerary. We have our language acquisition tracker. So the language acquisition tracker it's a tracking sheet that I created. This was inspired by the language acquisition assignment that I've assigned to my students in the past on an application where we were trying to identify ourselves as a language learner. And this is important because a lot of the times, many language learning students are not recording their progress as a learner in languages. And I often receive questions where people tell me, oh, am I improving? Or I don't know if I should keep continuing to learn this language because I don't know if I've improved. Or a lot of times, a lot of language learners, they don't know how to assess how far they've improved as a learner, so they don't know where they stand. So I created the language acquisition tracker to help students basically identify their goals, to give them a motivation or purpose to remember why they're learning the chapter, especially because, and how they can apply what they're learning into, like, what is the purpose. So basically, yeah, it's a motivation as a reminder, and it's also a purpose, so telling you how are you going to apply the target language. You have the date, check marks, and the task activities. You can see this is from my last stream. So this was from chapter 7. I just copy pasted and I just filled in chapter 8 here. My goals here have not changed. This is my SMART goals, SMART: specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time bound. I think having SMART goals are important in learning languages because the more specific it is, the more you have a narrowed learning experience for the week of, or basically, well, yeah, you could say the week of. So typically motivation, for the motivation purpose, I would say motivation would be more like just a reminder of why you're learning the language, and then purpose would be added later down the line because sometimes you don't know the chapter or like what the content is for the chapter ahead of time. So you can actually write down later and say, okay, for this purpose, we're learning about routine and free time, and this information, I could use this in my everyday speech with someone and talk to friends about it. So it can be applied in that kind of conversation. Another one here. So again, sorry for just jumping different boxes here. We have date, tasks, and activities. So I like to date the tasks that I do for the week of. So I limited it to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So 8 tasks for the week. I try to do 3 as a minimum number, and then 5 typically being the average goal. And then I just extended it to 8 just in case people just want to add more stuff to it. So here you can see from chapter 5 through 6. These are ones I got from chapter 5 through 6 And I didn't update the chapter 7, I just left it as is. And you just fill in what you did. So for example, today we are gonna put today's date and put 1/9/2024. And today we did chapter 8. And for chapter 8 we did 60 minutes. Okay. So this is just grammar. And then you can actually narrow down what did you do specifically. So you can have like, oh, you have listening activities, which is the following numbers, which is from the book. And then you gauge how many minutes did you spend doing that. Then you can have learning prepositions, chapter 3, etc., numbers. So you can go as detailed as you want, or you can just keep it like limited to whatever activity you were learning at that time. And then yeah, it's just anything you can do, because language learning, especially if you're making the language acquisition tracker for yourself, you don't have to just limit it to learning English from the grammar book. You can actually reference and say, oh, okay, so on, let's say tomorrow, you decided to watch a video on YouTube, and it's like a listening activity, so you're following along, so you can say, oh, listening activity, and you can say YouTube. I know some students ask me, okay, how long should I be watching a video? I typically would say 5 to 15 minutes is enough for you to get some of your practice in for your listening skills, especially because you might end up re-watching the video again just so you could hear the words, or end up doing a dictation activity. Dictation being like you're copying or shadowing what they're saying and repeating what they're saying. So you're just basically shadowing what the person's saying and getting your practice through there. So here, technically, I wouldn't have completed it yet because it's not the 10th yet. So I would leave it as a blank like that. So once you complete it, you can just delete it and then copy paste the check mark, and then boom, you're done. So you can see that you have some sort of tracker that tells you what you've done. And then again, you can do your motivation tracker and purpose here. Notes section is just basically what is something that you've noticed in the current lesson that you want to focus on. So for example, this is way back chapter 5 through 6. We talked about the word, how to use the word in. In and on are typically words that even native speakers tend to mix, or they don't know how to explain it. So I found out that when you use the word in, think sit inside, so double I. Sit as I there, inside, I again. So you got double I's, sit inside a small vehicle. So they would say in a taxi, in a car, in a truck. I'm in a helicopter, I'm in a canoe, I'm in a kayak, I'm in a small boat, etc. When to use on, think walk and on rhyme with aw sound. So wa, aw, right? So you would use large vehicles where you can walk. So I'm on an airplane, I'm on a bus, I'm on a cruise ship, I'm on a boat, I'm on a metro, I'm on a subway, etc. And then we talked about cardinal numbers and ordinal numbers. So cardinal numbers are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Ordinal, first, second, third, fourth, fifth. So again, this is just example of what you could fill in the notes here, just for your reference. And then we have a little section here called milestone progress markers. This milestone progress marker is, just think of it as like a test, a mini test of what you learned for the week, and you want to show how you're able to test what you've learned. So you can write a paragraph here. So you could say, I'm accurate preposition expressions, I'm on the plane, I'll be departing soon, I'm in the car, I'll be there in 20 minutes. And in numerical expressions, this is 1/5, 3/5 with an S, because 3 is plural, 1/3 or 2/3 with an S at the end again. So it's just, I'm displaying whatever I learned for the week, and I can refer back to here. And of course, again, you want to limit it to just maybe 60 minutes to study. I know some students might push to 90 or 120. I have a tendency to see students who try to push beyond 90 minutes and have a tendency to make more mistakes because their brain is getting fried from working so hard in learning English that they're not able to say things correctly, so they're like losing focus just because their brain is tired. That's basically what I'm trying to say. So I would not recommend pushing yourself to study more than 60 minutes, 90 minutes maximum, just because you don't want to overwhelm yourself, and you want to have your brain just like be active and being productive while you are learning. So better to have it in short durations than it is forcing yourself to learn so much in under a certain amount of time. And then of course relevancy is telling you why you're learning it, conversation skills, and in time bound, I always try to keep it as 1 week, because anything can happen in 1 week. If you try to do it daily, unless you have the dedication and the free time to do so, then you could do daily, like every day. Monthly, I would not recommend, or bi-weekly, just because it's just having so many things in this tracker in just 1 month feels like it's not going to fit everything that you learned. So that's why I recommend, just if you can, try to learn at least once a week, or a few times a week, to practice English, because that's what will help you improve in speaking. Okay, so with that being said, that's basically the tracker. The last thing I added at the very end is reflections. So the reflection corner is just to tell you, okay, what worked, what was great about what you learned, what could have been improved upon. So what didn't work is where you could answer that question. Things I can improve on. So these are extra notes of what you can do to improve. So you can say like, okay, well, since I'm learning about routine and free time, I guess what I can do to improve is I can start talking to strangers about the target language, or I can talk to friends, my English native friends who can talk like this, or so on and so forth. So you can mention a lot of things that you can improve on your experience. Again, I just leave it as that. So for example, I put here, I forgot to mention that fractions that I have more than 1 on top of the number means that you must add s to the board. I said border, but must add an s to the ordinal bottom number. And then I just put 2 x's here because of this art. It's just not gonna work if I leave if I just leave it as is, because the text is gonna go over this character, the sticker. So I just decided to put 2 separate things here to continue your thought. Yeah, that's about it. So I created this. If you guys are interested in purchasing this language acquisition tracker, I did make a link for my Ko-fi account. So you can go to ko-fi.com/the Homebody teacher. So if you go there, if you go under the shop, I believe, I'm just gonna do it for you guys. So let's go to Ko-fi. Oh wait, I changed my name. That's it. There we go. So we have a Ko-fi here. So if you go under shop, it's all here. So I just listed it as just $5. So you get 1 copy, and if you have a Canva account, which you have to make a Canva account, and Canva is free, you can edit whatever I made here. So you can actually have access to this link and then have a copy of this. So yeah, please consider purchasing one and support me if you like my work. All right, that being said, I hope we can transition back. I apologize again. I wanted to say it was like less than 5 minutes, but I think we went over by a little bit. We're now gonna move on to, let me actually present in full screen. Now we are going to segue to our next part here. Nora, hi teacher Hannah. Hi, good to see you. Glad to have you here. Thanks for joining me. We are just about to start our grammar lesson, so I just finished talking about the language acquisition tracker. We're now moving on to English for Everyone, and I have it all set up here. Yay, it's right here. How's your day, Nora? Also, I am just pausing, I'm checking my audio again just to see that nothing's acting up. Oh. Oh dear, oh dear. Okay. It's okay, I'll just leave the bottom running. That's perfectly fine. So if I need to transition back to the presentation, I'll just click this. Anyway, so this is where we left off. We are talking about routine and free time. You can use adverbs of frequency to talk accurately about your daily routine and how often you do work and leisure activities. So 8.1, key language, adverbs of frequency. Adverbs of frequency sit between the subject of the sentence and the main verb. So you can see it here. We have the subject, I, and then we have our adverbs of frequency here. And then take a shower in the morning. Use these for things that happen all or a lot of the time. Use the word regularly, sometimes occasionally. Use these things for that happen some of the time. And then I rarely, hardly ever, almost never eat dinner after 10 at night. Use these for things that happen very few times or not at all. Okay, so something I want to address is that in everyday speech, sometimes you might notice that these words are... Actually, let me reset for a second. Let's do blue, because sometimes they might end up at the end of the sentence here. So sometimes you would say, I take a shower in the morning. Always. So you might wonder, why do people say it like this sometimes? Why is always at the end? But in the grammar, it says that it's always between the subject of the sentence and the main verb, right? So this is the grammar rule. And remember, grammar and speech are not always the same. So in this case here, this is an example of speech. So it's informal, and it's also speech often does not follow the grammar rule. So in the case of this adverb ending at the very end, this is supposed to indicate emphasis, or it's just supposed to give a dramatic effect. Dramatic effect. For example, let me give one to you. So, I take a shower in the morning, always. You see how it feels kind of dramatic because I placed it at the very end? Yes. Yes, we do put a comma, Nora. That's correct. So we do put a comma after morning, and then you say always. Correct. So you got it. Typically, that's what we do to show emphasis, and it's just, again, it's for dramatic flair. I wake up at 4 a.m. in the morning, always. So it sounds dramatic. And we only do that in speech, not in grammar. So if you are taking a test, like let's say you're taking the I'm trying to remember a different test. What was the last test that you guys take? It's been a long time. I can't remember the test that you take for ESL, but I think you guys know what I'm referring to. Also, hey John, good to see you. You'll only follow the grammar rule when you're taking those tests, unless it's explicitly mentioned that you can use speech or informal speech. But in most cases, I think my understanding of a lot of ESL or EFL tests are usually grammar based. Yeah, they follow the grammar rule, so it's more formal, I would say. You're following more of the formal aspect. Okay. Something to also note here, sorry, before I scroll down, is to pay attention to the percentage here. So they kind of tell you the degree. So I like to call this degree. Degree of frequency. So it does have two names. I call it degree because 100% means that it is a higher degree of frequency. So always means 100%, right? Nearly always, you can tell it's like 90%. Oh, sorry. Always is 100%. I don't know if I just said that. And then nearly always is 90%. Then very often would be next, usually, often, and frequently. You can see that the word is slowly getting less, and less. So that's what I call the degree of frequency. Even though we still have the same title here, which is frequency. So how frequent do you do something, for example? And these are all adverbs, but I call this a degree because of how frequent are you doing the frequent word, if that makes sense. So you don't get confused. Hi, Irie. Yes, Nora, exactly. Degree or intensity. You are correct. All right. We are now moving forward. So yeah, please feel free to leave a message. I will address them on Instagram. I have my tablet in front of me, so I'll be able to address them immediately as soon as I see them. Okay, we have 8.2. Cross out the incorrect words to make pairs of sentences with similar meaning. So we spend every Christmas together. So I'm highlighting the word every Christmas. So if we say every, is it usually or always? Spend Christmas together. You don't have to type the whole sentence. You can just say the word. You can type usually or always. And I will engage with what you guys say. So since you're here, Nora, feel free to write what you think the answer is, and I will tell you if that is correct. And then hello, Irie. If you'd like to interact as well, please feel free to. If you said the word is always, you are correct. Okay. 2, it rains here about 3 times a week. I'm thinking of just like, I apologize. I'm just jumping in between reading and telling my instructions. Since I am kind of limited on time and I have to watch out for passing the 60-minute mark, simply because the stream is forced to end. So I have to keep track of time. So we can just answer the question, and I will just move on with it too. So I see Nora said we spend Christmas together always. So yes, that is the correct way to say it in everyday speech, but since we are looking at grammar, we can always say it here as we usually always spend Christmas together. So this is more of the grammatically correct way to say it. Putting always at the end is just, again, for emphasis. We spend Christmas together, always. And it's just, again, it's throwing some dramatic flair to the way that you're talking, and it makes you sound kind of sassy. So I think it's just funny. Anyways, moving on. Number 2, it rains here about 3 times a week. So if it rains 3 times a week, and we know there's 3 days out of 7, is it frequently or hardly ever rains here? So Nora said it rains here 3 times a week, usually. Okay, interesting. So your word choice, you said usually. When you use the word usually, it's kind of like, oh, well, on a normal basis, it usually does rain here, but for some reason it isn't. So that's kind of the, I guess you could say pragmatic of the word. So it's giving a different tone or flavor to how the word is being said. So yeah, when you say words in different parts or putting them in different places, it kind of changes the flavor of, or the flavor, it kind of gives off a different kind of vibe or flavor of the sentence. At least that's how it feels to me as a native speaker. Also, welcome. I think it's Faiza. Yeah, frequently. Very good. Number 3, she goes swimming 6 days a week. So 6 days a week, we are going with 6 out of 7. We can say that it is very often. So she very often goes swimming. This is actually kind of interesting in this section here. I don't know why, but this is just me. But I definitely have to check this word out because I feel like there needs to be a comma. So I am actually gonna look into this and just put a comma here. I'm just gonna look into it. Yeah, so it feels like it needs a comma because I don't typically, yes. Okay, so I'm gonna tell you why I feel like there needs to be a comma. It's because let's say we remove the word very often altogether or sometimes. So we kind of have an idea that she goes swimming quite frequently. So not every day, so not always, but it's very often, right? So if you take away very often and sometimes, you can just say she goes swimming. You kind of have this impression that this person kind of has a habit of going swimming, but we don't know the degree or the frequency that this person goes swimming. So very often, I feel like is a comma, is a parenthetical comma because you're specifying how often she does go. And it's not necessarily needed to be there, but for some reason, the book decides that we don't need the parenthetical comma because by removing the parenthetical comma, it means that it is very important in the sentence, therefore it doesn't need the comma. That's basically the gist of what parenthetical commas are. So, like this, it's basically equals to like this. Hence why I call it parenthetical comma. Parentheses. It means it's extra detail that's not really necessarily needed there, but it's there. So I kind of find this as a native speaker, I kind of feel like stating very often in a everyday speech is unnecessary. We would typically say she goes swimming quite frequently, or quite often. So rather than saying very often, it would be maybe this section here. So again, I'm gonna go back to blue because I want to identify blue as conversation. Most cases, very often would be right here, and this is for speech. So she goes swimming very often. It has a natural flow. I don't know why, but that's how it feels to me. But if I say she very often goes swimming, it has a very weird, awkward pause. Maybe it could be because a lot of my friends and we don't talk like that and use very often in between the subject and the verb. It's just much more natural at the end. I think it's mainly because of the word very. So yeah, this is just my 2 cents on it. Oops, let me reset. So it's the word very that's probably throwing me off because it feels very unnatural to me. So if I see like 2 words, I would most likely put it at the end. So that's a bit of my rant when it comes to the word very, very often. All right, moving on. Number 4, they go to the gym twice a week. So we know that they're going 2 times a week. So we have 2 out of the 7 days. So it's not nearly always, because nearly always would be 6 out of 7, right? So 2 out of 7, it's not, regularly would be close. It's close enough. So we'll take, they regularly go to the gym. And regularly is okay here. In speech again, it's put at the end. So they go to the gym regularly. So again, it can be moved back here for speech. And then I stay late at work about once a month. And we already know that once a month, 1 out of 31 days or 30 days, or if it's February, it's 28 or 29 in February. Okay. So in that case, we already know it's a very, very small detail, or like, it's like a habit. So I stay late at work about once a month. So this is rarely. So not often, I rarely stay at work. So okay, so in terms of everyday speech, I don't feel like rarely would be at the end in this context. I would say even in speech, it stays here, it doesn't move. Because if I were to try saying it and plug it in the back, I stay at work rarely. It feels kind of weird. It just sounds off. I don't hear that kind of language in my everyday life. I would hear it right here. So I rarely stay late at work. So these are the small nuances that I'm giving based on my experience with speaking English with all of my native friends. So these, I could be wrong. Everyone's experience could be different slightly. If you are from, let's say, in the UK, I feel like their English is slightly different than ours. I've been watching some YouTubers who are from the UK, and I've noticed the way that they speak on stream is very different. And their informal speech is quite interesting. I have to find an example of it so I can show it to you guys in the near future. But I was just like, that's crazy. We don't talk like that. Or do we talk like that too? I don't know. But I will find that video and I'll make an example out of it. But anyways, I digress. English in everyday speech is different. It's from California or SoCal. I'm narrowing and being more specific about it. At least in Southern California, I don't hear people say, I stay late at work rarely. It just sounds really weird. I don't know if they do say it in NorCal or Northern California. I don't know if they say it in other states because English is different in different communities. So it's just interesting. And I wanted to address that just because I'm not speaking on behalf of the US. I'm speaking on behalf on a portion of the US that does do this. Because, again, I don't know the facts of, or I don't know the specifics of everyday speech that's being used in the US right now. So, there's that. Okay. Moving on, we are looking at 8.3 key language word order. And I'm also going to check time for a second. Okay. You can also describe frequency with more precise expressions. Unlike adverbs of frequency, these must sit at the end of a phrase. So, I often, regularly, or hardly ever go running. The verb usually goes after the adverb of frequency. So this is just being triggered by a specific word. You have I go running 5 times a week, every Tuesday, once a year. So precise expressions usually go at the end of the phrase. So again, this rule here and this one here, these are both grammar rules. Okay, so if you're taking a grammar test, you have to know these. When you're doing this in speech, the rule is lost, which is why some people might not know. They're like, okay, why is regularly at the end? So I go to the gym regularly, for example. The way I say it, notice that regularly in this rule says it has to be in between the subject and the verb. Usually goes after the... Yes. Which is something here. Let me see. 1 second. Yes, it says here, I regularly... Where's regularly? Yeah, we can see here, I regularly cycle to work. So we have the subject and the verb. So it's right there in the middle. And then here we said the verb usually goes after the adverb of frequency. Wait a second. Yes, that's correct. Sorry, my brain is just like trying to process, like, what is this? The verb usually goes after the adverb of frequency. Yes. So the adverb of frequency is in between the subject and the main verb. And the verb follows after this. But here, I mentioned to you on the previous page that in the blue text that I mentioned at the end, they end up in the end. It's because speech loses the rule of grammar. Okay, so let's clear that up. So it is acceptable in speech to move these words at the end, only in speech or informal, conversational, colloquial. Yeah, these are all synonyms of each other. But just bottom line, speech. It's just the rules in speech, they lose this. Okay, so these can move at the end only colloquially, but don't do this on a test. I'm just trying to emphasize that. Don't do that on a test because you will get it wrong. I go running 5 times a week, every Tuesday, once a year. So what they're trying to tell you in the grammar rules is that the only things that can be at the end of the phrase is if it is specific. So I go running 5 times a week. That's a specific number. I go running every Tuesday, a specific day. I go running once a year. So again, the number is just being indicated here. So the more specific towards the end, if it's just an adverb of frequency expression, you leave it between the subject and you leave it in between the subject and the verb. Okay. All right. We have 8.4. Rewrite the sentences, putting the words in the correct order. So what I typically like to do is first identify where is the capital letter, because the capital letter is typically the start of the sentence. And you want to look for the period because that tells you that's the end of the word. So for number 1, I already circled it here. So we play, we have subject, verb, we play tennis once a week. Okay. Here we have they, and then we get the word they get early home rarely. So they rarely get home early. Because we know this because there's a period at the end for early and capital T for they. Okay. Next we have she eats breakfast every morning. Number 4, hardly ever I TV watch. So I hardly ever watch TV. Okay. Number 5, he cooks nearly always he dinner. So he nearly always cooks dinner. Okay, I kind of realized something while writing nearly always, and I should have addressed this a little bit early on. I apologize that this is coming out of the blue. This is just what happens to me when I'm working on something and then just something comes out of the blue. Nearly always is basically the equivalent of almost always. Okay. I do not hear the word nearly always as frequent as almost always, at least in my everyday community of speaking English. I would always hear the word almost always as the expression. I almost always cook dinner, or he almost always cooks dinner. So I don't use the word nearly. Perhaps it could be a more formal word, so that could be why it's not used as frequently. There's also the fact that this book also focuses on British English, just to keep note. So sometimes maybe the expression he nearly always cooks dinner, it could be, sorry, let me make that cleaner. This could be a British expression. Maybe I shouldn't say British. I should say UK. UK expression. And then you have US expression is almost. Oh, sorry. Let me just point it here. There you go. So, nearly always UK expression, most likely. Possibly. I don't know. I didn't live in the UK, so I don't know how English is being used over there. I think I've heard my my favorite YouTubers who are from the UK use the word nearly always. I think I heard them say that. So there's that. So we're gonna jump back to number 6. The dentist twice a year, we see. So we see the dentist twice a year. Nice. All right. This activity, you just have to read this and rewrite the sentence. So rewrite the note correcting the errors. So this says, just a month to go until our debut gig. Or debut gig, yeah. We 3 times a week practice together so that we'll be ready. We go very often, jogging before band practice. It helps sometimes us get ideas for tunes. Rehearsals are going well and we make rarely mistakes now. I have twice a month guitar lessons, which has really helped. After practice, we go out nearly always together. Yeah, I'm just stuttering over these because I'm like, this is so awkward to read. So we have just a month to go until our debut gig. We practice together 3 times a week. And then we're finishing that line here so that we'll be ready. Okay. We go very often jogging. Again, this is such a weird phrase for me. So they wanted to use we go very often. We very often go jogging. Before band practice. So again, I'm just like pausing because the word very often throws me off every time. We don't need to say very, we just say we often go jogging before band practice. At least, straight to the point, Americans. Okay. We have, it helps sometimes get ideas for tunes. So we have, it helps us. Oh wait. Oh, sorry, here. I should say sometimes. It sometimes helps us get ideas for tunes. Rehearsals are going well, and we rarely make mistakes now. I have guitar lessons twice a month, which has really helped. After practice, We go out. Oh, it's just a weird word again. We almost always. We'll go with the British one. Nearly or almost. We almost always. Together. There you go. And that's the answer for this exercise. Excuse me. Now we are at 8.6. Key language word order with be. So adverbs of frequency go before most verbs. So I often take the train. The traffic is often very bad. Okay. If the main verb in a sentence is be, adverbs are of frequency go after the verb, not before it. So here is my mental note from what I see visually, what's happening to this language or these words. I often take the train, right? This is because this is the subject is in first person. The first person, the traffic here, we're describing something else. Okay, and what is the job of adverbs? The job of adverbs is to describe the noun, the subject, sorry. Typically, it's to describe the subject. So we are describing here, I often take the train. So I am the subject, so the adverb is describing me. My habit is to take the train often. And then the traffic is often very bad. We are describing the traffic. So when the traffic is bad, it's... Oh, sorry. When there is traffic that takes place, it is very often. So you'd notice here we don't say I am often take the train. You can actually say it, but there has to be a change if you are going to say that expression. So if you are going to say I am, you can say I am often taking. So what happens is the word take changes to taking the train. So I am often taking the train. For example, to work. So we are specifying it too. I am often taking the train to work. So this is acceptable in everyday speech, and also I think you can also say this in grammar. But the reason why we have to write it like this is because this is the rule of the gerund, which we'll talk about in the far later into the chapter, because we do talk about gerunds. Gerunds are basically they're basically verbs that turn into nouns. Yes. Also, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I just saw your messages, Nora. You said right. Often are the verb except for verb to be. Yes. I am often taking. Now we have two verbs. So I'm often taking. Yes. Something to talk about the language. So you might be confused. You're like, why is there two verbs here? So this one is called, also let's use a different color just so we have some differences here. This sentence is present progressive. So that's why we have two verbs next to each other. I am taking the train to work, or I am often taking the train to work. So in the context of saying I am often taking the train to work, it's when people ask you about your habits. So what is your habit? Like, what do you do? How do you get to work? How do you commute? All right. Also, give me 1 second. I'm gonna refresh the stream because I got disconnected on